All right, we're back again. Welcome to another episode of Exceeding Track Limits podcast.
Forgive my sniffles and weird sounds if I do. I am definitely sick.
As usual, I'm Ryan, owner of Late Apex Performance Coatings.
And I am Jake, owner of Turn 13 Motorsports.
There we go. Yeah, we will see what we got going on. Maybe wait a few minutes here. I know we had it already going, but wait a few minutes. See if anybody is joining us. We got Mark Young and Jake. You're sitting right next to me, so that's two.
Said Mark's watching?
Says Mark Young.
Howdy, Mark. Unless you left already. Then farewell.
I think he did. He was like, "Yeah, it's bullshit. Let's get out of here."
I figure there's a load of people that open it up when they get a notification and they're like, "Oh man, what's this?" And then they see us sitting here talking and they're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, see you later."
Just some guys we don't talk to.
I thought that was going to be something cool.
So let's get into what. Oof. Do you have that on?
Oh, probably.
Can't hear some feedback here, buddy.
It was on a little bit.
So, what do you got going on in the shop this week, sir?
This week has been almost all cylinder head porting. There's been so much
On what exactly?
just the cylinder heads that that I'm contracted through support and ship. For
Janus.
Yeah, for the MotoCult, the company MotoCult, but for the CG250s. It's just been crazy. I had some from last week that I needed to get to that I didn't get because I was sick, and then more over the weekend and more this week. So it's just been crazy. So I have been working on a ZX10 that had a newer engine put in it, but the customer couldn't get it to run. So I was dabbling on that, cylinder heads, and yeah.
Very nice. I've been still steadily working on the oven, and also I've taken in. Excuse me, I'm gonna turn this up a little bit here for us. Been working on the oven as usual. Still trying to get that all knocked out for here, so it's going well. Fully insulated now. Burn box is in. Need to do a couple more things, but it's getting there. So it's still way over the time frame that I was hoping for, but it's going along. I'm just plugging away at it. Got the new equipment in Wednesday that we talked about, so it's going to be a little while before I get that unboxed and set up, but that's here. Have some jobs sitting on the shelf I got to do. I just finished one up today. It's a guy at Road Races, his C5 Vet. It's some wing supports. And then I didn't tell you this because I haven't really had a chance to talk to you, but Derek at Iron Pony hit me up about doing some parts for an Indian Challenger.
Ooh.
So it's a bike they're building that they're going to put on the showroom floor, to sell whatever. So I got a set of wheels. They're going to be going that gold, but they're not going to be gloss. We're going to do the satin. So it's going to be like that Forge Marchesini OEM satin gold.
Yeah.
And then swing arm, we're going to do satin black, your favorite color. And
those parts are here over there.
Yep.
Nice.
And then the calipers are going red, and then like the Brembo logos, the embossed logos, are going to go black on that. So it'll be a cool little thing. It'll be at Pony after they get it all together. It'll be kind of like a little unique thing. And,
yeah, that's cool.
Super cool to be a part of that. So, and then I got some parts from. I think I talked to you about that guy. I've met him like 2 times total, because usually the parts get given to me through this painter up in Bell Fountain, but he does restorations on old CBs and
We were talking about
Ducatis
that.
and things like that, and then he does these concourse shows with them. And some of the bikes that I've powder coated actually, have won some of these concourse like United States, competitions, whatever. So he's got some stuff he dropped off for me to do. And then, what else have I just got a couple things, just some tractor parts or whatever sitting here for a guy that I just got to basically strip and blast. He's going to be painting them whatever color he wants to paint them. So, yeah, there's that deal. But yeah, I mean, next week's
He wants to paint him. He doesn't want you to powder coat him.
Apparently so. I don't argue. Whatever they want.
Oh, but you said it's old tractor parts?
No, I mean, it's new stuff. I mean, it looks like Kubota or something,
Oh, I was going to say, some of those guys, like old Fords and stuff like that, like they want to paint like the Ford blue on it and stuff like that, but...
Right.
I don't know. New Kubota stuff,
Yeah, there's like a grill. It looks like it's off a John Deere, and then that stuff looks like... I mean, that's like attachment points for some kind of machine of some sort. Yeah. So, I don't know what exactly that is, but...
Fair enough.
Right. So, outside of that...
So what's the dimensions on your new oven?
Oh, it's slightly smaller than... And when I mean slightly smaller, I mean like by 5 inches or so in each direction. 10 by 7 by 8.
It's a big stove.
Yeah, so it's going to be awesome. I can fit a lot of stuff in it at once, and big racks and stuff, so excited about that. Because
now, did you want to do that so that you could fit like large items in there, or so that you could do that, like put racks with a bunch of items in there?
Both. So, sometimes when I do larger wheels, I could fit 4 in my oven, but they're close. And then... it's just kind of a pain to get them in and out, because I'm hand racking them inside the oven. There's a rack that's in there permanent, and I hang them on that. So with this, even if I don't powder coat them on the rack, I can powder coat them, hang them on the rack, roll them in, roll them out. So a lot of times I'll do 2 at a time in my current oven, and all that does is take double the time to do everything.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially when I have to do like a color change, or I'm doing a clear, I'll do 2 wheels with the color, half cure them, pull them out, rack them, coat the other 2 wheels, put them in the oven, half cure them, pull them out, rack them, let everything cool, change over to clear, and do that. And, it's a lot of time, because wheels take a lot of time to, it's not like hours by any means, but it takes time to get them to come up to temperature. And when you're doing that, waiting on that, it's double the time when I couldn't be doing that. Also, if I do have a lot of small parts, which I've, this guy that sends me bicycle stuff or whatever, I have to do as many as I can or whatever, and then I have to start over. You know what I mean? So, and I don't have a lot of rack space either, so I do what I can right now. But yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to do that. And then the fact that, like if I've done bumpers, Jeep bumpers and stuff like that in my oven. It's such a tight fit, and I have to have somebody else, because I just physically can't lift it by myself without like resting it on me. Yeah. So this will be a lot easier. I can hang it on the rack, shoot it on the rack, roll it in, roll it out. That's it. The only time I'm actually physically going to be lifting the thing is in and out of the media blast cabinet, and then just hanging it on the rack itself. So that's going to, help my back for sure. So yeah, I mean, it's all around. It's going to be awesome. Plus it heats up, even though it's a huge oven with the propane burner I got, it should heat, I'm told, to, from room temp to 400 degrees in roughly 10 minutes, where it takes my current oven about 40 minutes to get to temp.
Yeah.
40, 45, whatever. So, yeah, that'll be a great thing, too. And I've double insulated this thing, so it should maintain temperature longer than my current oven, which is only like a single-walled insulation setup. So I'll save. Propane's a little bit more expensive, but I think I'll save in the long run with just it being able to maintain temperature a little bit better.
All right. Yeah, because you said on your one now, like you basically just fire it up, get it up to temp, and it kind of stays there all day. So like this one, since it heats up so fast and everything, you could probably turn it off and then come back to it when you want to use it again.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, not losing the amount of temperature that I did before. So, well, I won't be losing as much temperature. We'll see. I haven't ran it, right? So, once it gets going, burns everything in, then it'll be some little trial and error, making sure, the controller and all the circulation fans and everything's just running right and get the burner right and everything. So, to have it just physically done, I'll be really, really happy. I know that it'll still be some little trial and error with setup on it, and probably have to go back and forth with the company that sold it to me, trying to set it up correctly. But we'll get to it and see what happens. So. Anything else new going on in your neck of the woods there, man?
No, we're all sick. That's it.
And now I'll be sick as well. So.
Yeah, next week you'll be sick. But yeah, that's about it.
Very cool. If anybody's watching has any questions on anything, go ahead. Ask away. We're here to answer. Going to get into, kind of like we did with Jake a couple weeks ago or so, kind of his background story on and our bestest friend, Mr. Matt. As always, tuning in. We can count on him every week.
Solid viewership.
Yeah, next time we're just going to have to do like private, just be Matt only if that's all we have, right? What's going on, Matt? Matt got a new PC or a laptop to do all scanning and stuff. This is like super nice, super high end. It's going to make his life way easier to model and do his scanning and stuff. So he's pretty stoked. We talked about that the other day. He's stoked about that. So that's pretty awesome.
It's so crazy how powerful of a CPU you need to do scanning. Like, I mean, the graphics card and the CPU that you need to get not have your computer getting 3 frames a minute. It's crazy. My desktop is decent. I mean, it's not crazy, but I always build my computers. And so they're usually pretty decent. But I never have crazy good graphics cards because I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
And so I've never really had a need for a graphics card because most of your CAD stuff is it's very CPU heavy, but not really graphics, right? Unless you're doing a lot of rendering stuff, but I don't usually do a bunch of renders. I don't really care. But yeah, when I got that scanner and started getting into the scan world, it's wow, okay, my computer can't do anything. And certainly my laptop, because the laptop I have, I use it to run my flow bench and do stuff out in the shop just so I can move it around. But it is absolutely not even close to being able to I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I can't imagine the cost of, because laptops, to get a laptop with that performance is probably double the cost of a desktop. So he's probably got a $2,500 laptop or something.
Oh, maybe, who knows, maybe more. I know. I mean, I didn't spend quite anywhere near that on mine. And I mean, it's a gaming laptop for the most part, which I wanted something that could do some video editing and things like that. Just, not super high end, but just enough to get me by to be able to do some stuff with, GoPro videos or any stuff I do for the business or whatever. But you'll have to talk to him about that because it's he was kind of telling me a little bit about it. I didn't get all the specs on it, but he was telling me it's a Lenovo, I believe, and I think he got it from Lenovo. He didn't get it. I was like, "Did you get a Micro Center?" He's like, no, I got it from Lenovo." Yeah, that's sweet, man.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see all that. So yeah. Anyways, we'll get into if anybody else has. Well, no, Matt didn't have a question. Just want to say what's up, which is awesome. 24 cores, 128 gigs of RAM.
128 gigs of RAM. Jesus Christ. That is insane. I mean, it's required for sure. Like, you definitely need that. But just the fact that you have 128 gigs of RAM in a computer is just fucking crazy. Like, my gosh.
Now that I think about it, you did tell me this, and I just completely forgot. Currently on a plane 30,000 feet in the air, so feet is a bit delayed, but tuning in. Even on a plane, the man is tuning in. That's fantastic.
24 cores. So do you have like 3 i7s in there or something? Like, what's going on there? Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, like the RAM, you can just get 32 gig sticks and throw a bunch of 32 gig sticks in there, and you're good to go. But I don't know. I mean, I've never looked into like multi-processor computers or anything like that. Like, that's probably getting a little wild. But
yeah, I know like legitimately nothing about computers. So I used to, like, way back in the day when I was just a young lad, you know, in high school to right out of high school. And then everything just, I think we talked about this the other day, like everything just became phone oriented.
Yeah.
So like I had not even like a zero use for a computer until like business needs, which when I had my like mobile tire change service way back in the day, I bought a MacBook, and which I liked. I mean, it was great. You know, now it's 15 years old and it's absolutely nothing. But I don't know, and he didn't really know a lot about Macs. I just wanted something I could do some graphic design stuff and little things on it and video editing and stuff for the business or whatever. Which it kind of sucks because you are limited on not so much anymore, but back then there's limitations to software and stuff. But you know, nowadays it's like, I have no idea what, like, the type of peripherals and hardware and like video cards and all this. It's like it's out of control, man. Like, I have no idea. You just used to have to buy like a Packard Bell or a compact, and like that's what you got. You know what I mean? Like, there probably was stuff back then, but it just wasn't as mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty okay with like the CPUs and stuff like that. But like I was saying with the video cards, like, I didn't even know what to look at in the benchmarks, because like they benchmark them, right? Which is kind of like a dyno, right? They dyno the video card, and so they can show you how it compares. I'm like, I don't know if that's good, bad, indifferent. So like, I have a buddy that's a big gamer and a big PC gamer. So I'm like, hey, is this one good? Is that one good? Like, you know what I'm doing, so what should I get?
Yeah, it's like, I just ask people at Micro Center, I'm like, here's what I want to do. Is this what I need to buy? They're like, yeah, this one here or this one here, but this one's probably what I'd tell you to go. I'm like, okay, whatever. That's cool.
Take my credit card. Thank you.
Yeah, it was good enough. But, so yeah, Matt's got the thing going there, which is awesome. And back to what I was saying here, we a couple weeks ago, or it was probably about a month ago now, because we skipped that week. We talked about your starting business and whatnot, and kind of how you got things going to where you are now. And we're gonna do. We skipped doing mine last week because we had a lot of the race talk to do, so we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. And yeah, I don't even know where to start. The biggest question I get asked is like, well, how long you been doing this? I've been doing it like a long time, but you know, legitimate, like under a business license, only been 2 years. But so when I was 6, no, I'm just playing. Always been into cars and bikes and all that jazz, right? And everybody's like, oh, did you go learn in this somewhere or whatever? No. I was a broke dude, as always, and I always tried to have some kind of side hustle, and I just learned things. Like, I'd rather like spend more money buying a piece of equipment, learning how to do something, than paying somebody to do it for me, because I know I could eventually probably use that to make my money plus back. That's how it just kind of and it wasn't like a want. It was more like a necessity because I just didn't have a lot of money. So if I wanted to invest in something or I wanted something, I would say, okay, well, I'll do this because I know I can like turn around and make money with it. So it's kind of like what happened, right? So I had this, my first Harley I bought was a 2007 Street Glide. I bought this thing. It was pewter denim silver. It was all chromed out. I absolutely hated it. I started looking around for like, okay, well, I could just buy the black parts. They were outrageous from Harley, which is nuts to me knowing now like powder coating versus chroming costs. It's like,
right.
It's insane, right? But black parts were more expensive. So then I'm like, okay, I called a place, how much to powder coat this, whatever. And it's, obviously it's fair price, but it was just out of my price range. So I bought a cheapo Harbor Freight gun and a home oven and did it out of my garage. And did they look great? Not really. You know what I mean? But solid colors anyways aren't too bad to do. You can make them look decent enough. And I just wanted the stuff black. And I didn't know Harleys anyway. So like even like the valve covers, I didn't pull those. I just like scuffed them and shot them with that VHT wrinkle paint.
Oh yeah.
Which kind of worked. I had it blacked out. Whatever.
Yeah,
it was good enough,
black,
right?
So be it.
And then after that, I had somebody go, "Oh man, like that looked good. Like, can you do this for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, why not?" So I did a couple here, a couple there. I remember like having to do a piece that wouldn't even fit in this home oven. So like I had foil, like the oven door down and foil around it to like trap it. Yeah, but I mean it worked, right? So
awesome.
That's when I lived in Hilliard or whatever, and kind of went on for a little while doing little parts and stuff. And that's what a lot of people, a lot of people do, or just do these little odds and end parts for people, rear sets, small stuff like that they can fit in a home oven. Because a home ovens, you can get one free or you get one cheap, whatever. And then the set, your gun or whatever, and you're very limited what you can do with these small hobby guns. Like, especially knowing what I know now, you're very, very limited. Can you get results out of it? Like, okay results? Yeah. And then if you're okay with that, then that's fine. You're not going to stick a wheel you could probably stick a Grom wheel in there, but you're not going to stick like a legit wheel in an oven. So that kind of went on for a while. And like, I was literally with this shit sandblasting thing, like a siphon feed in my yard. So like after a while, it kind of looked like a beach there. Right.
That might be better than eating away the floor at your shop.
I don't want to talk about that. Anyways, then I moved out here to Marysville, and I kind of just got rid of all my stuff, right? And when I moved to Marysville, I thought about getting back into it again, and then I had a friend that I used to do some track days with way back in the way. His name's Daniel McCurdy, I think. I can't remember his McNulty. He was from Indiana. I think he still is in Indy. And he was like, "Hey man, I saw, whatever you want to do my Street Glide." He bought like a 2010 or something. I'm like, "Well, I don't have anything right now." I'm like, "But if you like legitimately want to do it, then I was looking at what my investment would be and to get a halfway decent setup and what I was going to bill him for, and I was like, "Okay, well, like I'll basically be doing this job for free." Well, kind of. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting paid.
But you get all your equipment.
Yeah.
So you just wash, but then you got the equipment.
Right. So I built the current oven I had, which I thought, I'll be able to build this thing for like $400 or $500. Hell no. I have like 1,500 in this, and it's not even that nice. So I built that, which made me go over budget on stuff. But I got a better hobby gun. It was kind of. It was way better than I can get a Harbor Freight or whatever. It's a Spectracoat. And that let me do a lot more things than I thought I could do. But still, it wasn't the most perfect thing. And I had to do learn some techniques to get things done because the equipment couldn't do it. And I just kind of did that for a long, long time and made good money doing that as a side hustle thing. And more people wanted things done, whatever. And I worked at Honda at the time, and then I left Honda. I went to another place where I was a supervisor for a while, and then a production engineer. And I was just doing this stuff. At first, it was just like, okay, only Saturdays. And then Saturdays became Saturday, Sunday. And then Saturday, Sunday became Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It just became a little bit more of a one with the work, and I couldn't turn it away. I'm like, this extra cash is nice. Like, I built my twin-turbo Mustang with this money. I built my Pro Charge with this money. I mean, 30 grand or whatever I'd make in cash, that's what I put into something. Like, that was just all cash from this. So it was nice to have that, like, not pulling from your normal finances, this thing that, could fund fun stuff. So it's very cool. And then at one point I'm like, well, I should maybe like invest in even more shit, like better equipment. So I bought a Gima, not the current one I have, but it's like, it's the like 2 or 3 models before that, which is still leaps above what I had. Did that, upgraded my booth a little bit. Start doing different blasting setups and blast cabinets and things to improve efficiency and quality and all that jazz, and just kept like kind of investing in stuff. And then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday became Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day after work. I'm like, okay, a little bit here, a little bit there. I just couldn't turn people down, and then I got to the point where I was worrying more about the jobs I had waiting in my shop at home than I did about what I was doing at work. And then COVID stuff hit and all this shit at work and whatever. And then just the management where I worked, I just was not, things just weren't jiving. And I was like, it's about time. My workload that I was getting was just so high that it started to be a compromise of like, okay, we're going to turn people away or say I'm not working between, in this season because I actually wanted to be able to do something. I was working 40 hours a week, plus putting in however many fucking hours a day doing the powder coating stuff. And I just enjoyed the powder coating stuff more. And so I made the leap and said, you know what? Finances are good. Everything. Me and the wife talked things out. And, it was like, okay, now's the time. So we were in a position that, if I made $0, didn't matter. Like, we could still live just fine. And so I said, yeah, it's probably time to do it. So that's when I went legit, and it's been good so far. Could I make more money? Absolutely. I'd love to. But, the first couple of years always is just kind of like reinvesting, having a better, more streamlined process, etc., learning things. So I've never had any training. It's all been on the fly, learning stuff, but I've learned a lot. And that helps. And, always run into issues like we talked about that one time, equipment or whatever, things you'll have problems or whatever it may be, and kind of fight with that. But it makes it a lot easier when I'm not working another 40-hour-a-week job. And then, becoming friends with you and stuff, which expands the business because of your business and other people, which, you kind of led me into Roger and da-da-da. And, it's just expanding and doing things. And, yeah, so, and again, now with the new equipment I got in, I'm going to try to expand a little bit more. And, yeah, I have people all the time like, when are you going to grow out of your home shop space? And I'm like, man, to be honest, and I think maybe I talked to you about this. I think I did. There comes a point where, or, when are you going to hire somebody? And there comes a point of, well, do I want the extra work load or the extra bills that come with this? Is it going to even out? Like, eventually it probably could grow to more than that. But I mean, I don't drive to work. I walk out my back door.
Isn't that awesome?
I have my bills are my bills. Or, what I would like to have a little bit more storage space, just because I feel a little bit cramped in here with just some things that aren't really, shop or like business oriented towards the business, but I still have to have somewhere to put it. So I'd like that, but I don't want to have to drive to a big facility. I also don't want to pay anybody, because there's a couple things I have to, in order to pay somebody a good salary to keep them, somebody that's worth keeping, that means I have to make at least that much more.
Yeah.
And then I'm only breaking even, right? And does that lessen my personal workload? It really doesn't. And on top of that, it's, you have to have somebody you really, really, really trust, because it's your namesake, right? Like, everything kind of falls back on you. So if something gets fucked up, you're responsible for it, and you may not know it. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're always going to check on those things, quality assurance before it goes out, but still, it's just like you don't want to have to redo something either.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't have to pay a guy that's doing something and then have to redo it on your time and your dime. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a cap of money that I could probably make, sales that I could make a year. For what I'm doing, I don't think I haven't reached that yet, and that's just because of the proficiency of, the oven and things like that. But I'll get there with the improvements I'm doing. But yeah, I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't want the headache. I don't want oh man, I got to make this much money to pay the rent today. Where right now I have no rent. I mean, we pay for our monthly home payment, and taxes and all that stuff, but I don't have to worry about paying another separate $1,500, $2,000 a month to keep doors open, and an electric bill and heating, etc. All those bills add up, and to me, it's just not worth the extra, space or.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, right? Because obviously, and you get more employees, they make you money and stuff, but the powder coating business is kind of. You can almost think of it like tuning, right? Like, if I hired somebody to help me with tuning, it doesn't matter if I hire 46 guys to help me with tuning or you hire 46 guys to help you with powder coating, your bottleneck is still your oven, right?
Yeah,
so, you're going to put stuff in there and you're going to cook it. Or somebody else is going to put stuff in there and cook it. But you're not going to have 10 guys in here that put 300 things in there each to cook it, right? So,
For sure, yeah.
You'd either have to okay, well now I got 10 guys, I got to build another oven, or
Yeah, exactly.
So it would just you still have a bottleneck to where you can't just infinitely grow. You would have to change things, and it would get annoying.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to, I would call it custom powder coating, which would be the wheels side of things, valve covers. It could be, somebody's old refrigerator, restoration or stuff, just general things like that I normally do now, or bumpers or whatever. That's a subset. That's one subset of powder coating, right? And then you have the other side, which is mass production from companies. They send you in. You're doing, I know one of my buddies works for a powder coating company that has automated lines and stuff and whatever, and they're doing medical cabinets. They're doing server racks. They're doing... this, these huge pieces and tons of them. Yeah. They're getting 100,000, whatever it is. And they're doing, it's very cheap per piece for them when they're doing these, things. But that's how, when you talk about powder coating, you want to make this exuberant amount of money. That's where it goes to. I mean, this commercial, huge orders. And that kind of takes away the fun of it. I don't want to be doing 1,000 panels in off-white.
Yeah.
That's not, I went to school for graphic design, didn't finish, by the way, but went to school for graphic design. I've always been into art, it's some form of one way or the other. And, even now when I'm doing satin black or black this or black that, which I do a lot of, it's not that I hate it, but it doesn't get me excited. So when I do these cool things, where I get to kind of, put my little touch or kind of let my imagination go on it, is when I get more excited on these things, and it keeps me more in it. And that's what I like. And, I know I have this, just roundabout thing of a lot of doing these satin blacks or whatever. And that's where honestly more of the money gets made on that stuff, because it's not technical things. But, I like having those one-off things every once in a while, because it just kind of brings out that little creative side and keeps me going. So, knowing that, I would just, what am I gonna do? I'd be sitting, if I owned the place, maybe I'd oversee or be supervising things, but I'd still be kind of sitting in an office just watching off-white panels go through a fucking conveyor. How, then it just becomes a job. I don't know,
Yeah, I mean, if you got to that point though, that's, if you're at the point where, you've got thousands of things coming and going, you know, I think it'd be less about your enjoying and sitting back, and more about like, okay, I'm going to take the money that I made and now I'm going to go enjoy something with all this money because I have this giant company. Like you would lose you would trade one for another, but you would have a lot bigger headache because now you're in charge of a giant company.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
my wife loves the sign.
Oh, thank you very much.
She wants to know what the coolest project you've done.
Oh man, I don't know. Like,
I mean, there's nothing big. I thought that valve cover was really sweet.
Yeah, with the gold leafing on it was pretty slick. That was one thing I always wanted to try with that. There was somebody tried to pull that off. They put it up, and it looked terrible. And I was like, I can do better than that.
And I do love the sign. So
yeah, the sign's really cool, and hopefully I'll be able to do some really cool stuff with signage stuff here soon. But yeah, like I have that valve cover I did, like the cup I did for you, that type of stuff like that, where I can get a little creative and see, okay, where can I push like the artsy side of the powder coating thing that people are like, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
Like the cup I did for Anthony with like this faux carbon fiber pattern on it. Like, I've not seen that, right? I did
Omar's was pretty wild too.
Yeah, Omar's cup was really cool. I did the one for Linder, which looked like, a stainless cup, but it looked like it was welded. So, like, the color, like titanium discoloring.
The purples and the blues.
I did a guy's derby cover on his Harley that was, like, their club, the proprietors thing. That was really cool. Like, all that stuff, like, I love all that. Very, very cool stuff.
Roger's tank was pretty cool too, right? Wasn't that like a four different coats or something like that? Or
it was, but that's just straight like layer, right?
I got you.
So there's no like technicality really behind that. I like doing a lot of the vinyl pull stuff, which is kind of where that cup came in, or Omar's stuff, and it's not easy. Like there's a very steep learning curve to get those things right, and not have it look very fucked up.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it. Like you pull it off and it's like too cold and it'll pull it, or like it's too hot and it's brittle and it like pulls the powder like around
right?
it.
So too cold, it's brittle. It'll just flake off. If it's too hot, it's stringy, and then you'll lose the shape of the letters and sometimes. So it's a lot of like, in all metal, thicknesses are different, and types of metal, aluminum, whatever, they all heat and cool at different temperatures. So it's a learning curve to know, okay, I can do this on this, and I can this temperature, this, and it's not even a checking it with a gun. It's physically, I can see how it looks and say, okay, it's ready.
Yeah.
And that's just something you learn as you go. I fucked up a lot. I mean, more than times than I can even. It's so bad, but that's stuff I really like to do. It's real cool and interesting and different, and people kind of go, oh shit, didn't know like you could do that.
What about two-tone stuff? Like those like KTM wheels, they'll be like half white, half orange and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's still kind of like, to me personally, boring, but that is a difficult thing to do. Like to not get that, especially if you're doing like orange and white, like to not get that overspray on it and stuff. There's a lot of technicality with this stuff, and like the 3-tone wheel I did, the wiping and stuff, it looks really cool, and I don't think people understand what goes into that. There's hours in that one wheel. Like I have probably, not talking about the prepping part of it, but there's black, the blue, and the white on there. So each coat's going on, and it has to go on a certain way, and each color has to be semi-cured. And then when you add the other one, when the powder's dry, you're vacuuming and wiping and making sure you don't have powder overflow onto other spots where it shouldn't be. And it's just so tedious because like I could be wiping that wheel. Let's say I shot the white first and now I'm shooting the blue. And I have to wipe the blue off of where the white is going to be. If I accidentally hit a spot where I shouldn't have, that exposes that white underneath, well, guess what? I have to get my gun back out and I have to reshoot. Well, guess where all the powder goes? Because it's electrostatic.
Yeah.
Fucking everywhere. Which means I have to rewipe essentially the whole fucking wheel. And it's just like, if you screw up, and I don't have the steadiest of hands, it's a major thing. Even though it's dry powder, it's still time consuming as hell. So, there's 6 hours in one wheel.
Yeah.
In that particular thing. But, and that's.
Yeah, I didn't know there was as much as like that little vacuuming stuff that people do. Like I mean, I never really thought about it, so I didn't really know what they did, but I definitely didn't know that they were using like, tiny little like, whatever, like a 30,000th needle, and they're vacuuming like out of the letters and stuff like that. Like that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people go, oh, look at it and they go, oh, that doesn't look too bad, and it's terrible. It's so much work, man, because like I said, if you get off of what you're trying to vacuum or wipe or whatever, then you fucked it up. So then you have to, respray and then re-vacuum, and it could take you 3 tries. And if you're just starting them, it looks cool. The wiping's probably one of the easier things to start on, especially if it's like a hard line. Let's say you get a valve cover and they have like the ribs on the top that are very pronounced. I'm talking, a quarter inch or more sticking up, and you're shooting that black and you're like, well, I'm going to expose the aluminum underneath. That's very easy. That's, you can put your fingertip on it and legitimately run across it, and there's very little chance you're going to touch anything you shouldn't be touching.
Yeah.
But when you come down to stuff that's like 2 mil raised or 1 mil raised, when your finger's on it, it squishes.
Yeah.
And plus it's electrostatic, and if you have any type of static on your finger or whatever, it's going to pick up stuff or drop stuff, and it could be a pain in the butt, but like that's kind of the first step into it. After that, there's doing the stencils, which are extremely difficult learning curve to understand and get correctly. Like I said, it's just so much for different metals and different things and whatever. And then after that, it's kind of what I do, which I don't really talk about my process on it because there's really nobody doing it. So, I mean, there are some techniques that people show online with, like, instead of wiping powder, if you want to do certain things, you could take like a paintbrush on a dry powder and create streaks or stuff. Or there's some
give
people,
it like a texture or a pattern or something.
Yeah, to kind of have kind of like a semi-brush look. But, again, it's like you don't know what it's going to look like till it's out of the oven.
Right. It's one of those things where you just got to like practice, and you're like, well, I know that on satin black, if I use this brush, it gives this look. But you can't do that on gold. I've tried it on gold, and it ruins it. So it's like it'd be one of those experience things.
And then people mess around with, using water. So, like, if you put a coat of something and let's say, I don't know, red, and then you shoot black over top, and you take some water and you kind of spat it on there, or you could use a squirt, like a Windex bottle type thing, spray it on there, and the powder's going to push away. You're going to have those spots, and the water just evaporates. Well, then you can create a design with that. It's very sporadic and not as like nice looking or whatever, but there's those type of things too. But the stuff that I do with creating these with the stencil pulls, and then the additional things I do to really create like a dirty look or whatever, it just looks really cool. And not a lot of people are doing it. And I've done them on calipers and stuff. And it's like you roll up somewhere and somebody's got like those American flag calipers I did with the with the shadowed Brembo logo on it.
They might as well do that on the new RSGP.
That's true. That's basically like Nicky Hayden's.
Well, that's what they said. They said they did that for his. Side note on that, when you were talking about using like a Windex bottle and spraying, have you ever used Dykem, like a machinist fluid? It's like blue, purple, red. Like you put it on it, and it kind of like adheres to it, so then you can see like where you're cutting or something.
I've used it, but not like powder coat or something.
So, it's kind of like a poor man's wet flow. So on the flow bench, when you're flowing a cylinder head, you're just doing airflow, right? But you can kind of do like a poor man's wet flow if you take some Dykem and mix it with water and get it really, really thin, and you can like dribble it above the port, and it'll pull it in, and then it's kind of like fuel going through it, and it'll stain the walls where it goes.
That's very interesting.
Well, the first time I was trying that, I didn't know, like, do you dribble it? Do you put a lot in? Like, I don't really know. So I had a Windex bottle that I put it in, and I was like spraying it like to watch it, and like technically it worked because it did kind of spray it and go through. But if you look at my laptop now, my laptop is just it's like sparkled everywhere with Dykem, because it like obviously I had my laptop up there because that's what I used to run the flow bench, and it just got Dykem all over it, and it doesn't clean off. So my laptop is just coated with that stuff now.
That's funny. Yeah, that's always a fantastic thing. Whenever I do anything with Cerakote. That stuff. Like, you have to prep a surface that it goes on so well for it to not come off. But if you get it on your skin, You might as well just take a razor blade and cut the skin off because it doesn't. I've got it on my teeth before by accident. Like, and I maybe spilled it over on my bench or shit. That shit is still there. It does not go away. It's crazy. Even the stuff that's oven baked.
Yeah.
Well, it should oven bake to cure, right? No, it just stains. But on a piece of metal, if it's not prepped right, it's real. You have to be very specific on that. But you want to just splash it on concrete or wood.
Off you go.
It's there forever. Yeah. It's crazy.
That's funny. Yeah, I've heard the Cerakote is pretty nasty.
It is. Like, one time, I was this guy. I said, man, this stuff smells really bad. I was like, you ever smelled it before? He's like, no. And I'm like, here, said, don't take a big whiff, but just smell it, whatever. And he's like, I can't smell it. I'm like, put it up. I guess I can't really smell it either. I shook it up, and I'm like, cracked it open. I'm like, oh my God, dude. I had a headache for like 2 days. The idiot.
It's like smelling salts.
Oh, it's worse than that. That stuff. And when you spray it, like, obviously I use a respirator and whatever, and now I use a full face mask with respirator, but it's still, like, it just stays in your nose, that smell, forever. It's so terrible.
I don't know if my wife's still in here, but I'll give her an embarrassing story. They had to give her smelling salts after she had Maverick because she was, like, so tired. Because this was, like, we went into the hospital at, I don't know, 2 in the morning, maybe something like that. And so basically she had stayed up all night. So she was already like exhausted. And then she went through like childbirth. And so she's just like passing out, dying. And yeah, they cracked open some smelling salts and it just boop, perked her right up.
Man, I don't know. Like, my wife's brother, Corey, he uses that stuff when they power lift and do all that stuff. And,
oh yeah, you were telling me that. That's crazy.
And on the Rogan, they do that. Like, just do it just to do it, I've never tried it, but, man, I would probably hate it because, that harsh stuff, man, that'll just give you a headache for days.
Yeah.
It's just no good.
I wouldn't want to. I already get bad headaches. I couldn't imagine inducing it with that.
Oh, that'd be terrible, man. So, anyways, that's that, yeah. Thanks for the question on what's the coolest thing I've done. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to be able to, get this oven done so I turn people away with bumpers and stuff all the time, and like, it's just decent money in that. It's not too tough, but it's yeah, be able to do those things.
How do you price stuff for people?
Man, it's
just square footage. Is it the piece?
Yeah. So there's a lot to do with like.
Obviously, the powder is a determining factor.
Yep, what color it is. So if it's like satin black, it's a one-shot done type thing, but other colors may require a clear or may require a base and then that color and then a clear or whatever it is, so everything's a little bit different. And then it's, you could go here and then go to Georgia and then pricing on average pricing on wheels or whatever it is, it's going to be completely different because there's a lot of area and stuff. Now I've increased my pricing from 2 years ago, whatever, because obviously when doing it not as my actual income, it's like my hour labor stuff. I just really didn't really take into account. I'm like, yeah, it's a side hobby, whatever. And now I'm getting a little bit more into that. Like, what is my cost on electric and time and diesel and everything else, and everything kind of goes into it. But it fluctuates so much. I don't know. Now it's kind of, I know what I'll price things out based on what I've priced things out on, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. For sure.
So so like I can start out and say, like, I could always use satin black as a base.
Yeah.
And say, well, if I'm going to do this in satin black, let's say a motorcycle frame. If it's a motorcycle frame and I'm charging $250 in satin black, well, then I go, okay, well, this guy wants illusion purple. Well, that's an illusion color, which requires a clear, and the illusion and the clear cost more. So now the price goes up to X, whatever it may be.
I got you.
Yeah, I do have, Marysville has this bike right now. The guy called about getting the satin black wheels on this Fury he just bought, done in gloss black. And I said, oh, man, because he's getting pipes put on and tuned. And I go, you getting it tuned too? He's like, yeah. It's his father's or whatever. I go, it's like, were they going to put a power commander on it? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, man, I wish I would have known before, because my buddy owns a shop.
That's terrible because they're not gonna like. You should definitely make sure like you talk to him because they're not going to tune it. They cannot tune. They have no capability to tune. So all they're gonna do is put the Power Commander on with an internet map. They cannot tune.
Well,
it.
I know that, right? Yeah. So I'll talk to him a little bit. He goes, "I wish I would have known that before." Blah blah blah. But he's going to get the info because he's got a bike too, and he whatever. But I said, yeah, he could have ordered the pipes. He could have actually dyno tuned the thing and whatever. And then he was like, well, I asked them if they would hold onto the bike while we get the wheels powder coated, and they said no. Because they're waiting on pipes and stuff. Anyways, but he's like, yeah, I asked them if they could hold on the bike till you get the stuff done. They could put it back on, and they said nope.
Wow.
He goes, so if you give me your number for your buddy, I'm like, well, I doubt he just wants to pull your wheels and have your bikes at the shop. I'm like, so if you want to bring it over here, I'll pull the wheels, or I'll just have you do it, and have them pay for the time. But he wants the bars off too. Now he's going to get the bars done. But I'm
happy to help him out if he wants. So you can tell him to hit me up. But and I maybe he will want it actually tuned instead of just a map thrown on there.
Right. And I think he's supposed to get with me Saturday. He might be dropping off Saturday. I'm not sure, but we can. Depending on if you're free or whatever, if he's coming over, I could say, hey, have you come over, and then you could talk to him. Yeah,
I don't. As far as I know, I don't think I have anything going on Saturday. So just hit me up. Let me know.
Yeah, I'll find out whenever he's going to bring over. Bring it over, and I'll let you know, whatever. But so that was kind of interesting. I was like, man, a lot of shops would be like, yeah, you leave it hang around here on the lift or in the corner, and then they're going to make the money for pulling the bearings, pulling the tires, pulling all that stuff. And they didn't want to. So,
well, that's
he didn't buy it there either, though. So, but yeah. Anything else? Oh man, getting into a little, track racing, club racing stuff. I don't know for sure, but I was so excited about NCM being on Azra's race list, and now for whatever reason, it's pulled off. So I don't know if somebody said there was some kind of scheduling conflict, and now that's not going to happen, which kind of sucks because I was really looking forward to that.
So I know a long time ago, I forget who it was talking about it, but NCM had something. There was something they had that was like against racing. Like the track was fine, like track days and cars on the track and all that good stuff, but like actual paid race events, there was something weird with that.
Well, they used to back in the day because I saw a video of it on YouTube. There was like a 4-hour endurance ultra lightweight.
Really?
Yeah, and I watched it because it was interesting or whatever. But
well, they also have the sound limit too, which is always a problem for racing.
Not really. I mean,
any RSV4 will pop it.
Not mine. Not when I had my Arrow with the DB killer in it. Fine.
With the DB killer in it.
Yeah, but I mean, who cares? But when I had it with the Akrapovic on it, never hit the one above the DB limit. So I mean, I did get popped one time when I forgot my DB killer.
Yeah.
But
So I always see the RSV4 because the RSV4s are so loud, right? Like the RSV4s and the R1s are the loudest bikes. They're just insanely loud.
Yeah.
And so any of the kind of shorty pipes on the RSV4s or the R1s, they always got popped. Always. So I feel like that would make it hard to race. Like you were saying, little guys, they're not very loud, right?
Yes, they are.
They're loud, but not compared to an RSV4. I can promise you this.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, my KTM, when the baffle came out, dude, that was the loudest bike I've ever been on in my life.
I can promise you from dynoing them that a KTM 390 does not hold a candle to an RSV4.
Well, that may be true, but I'm just telling you, like, people, the next time I raced on that KTM 390, like the next year, and I put a Arrow, which had the resonator on it, like kind of like my RS660 does, this guy was like, oh, dude, I either have to be in front of you or behind, or like not come near. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, that bike is so loud. He goes, I was trying to pass you and follow you. It was really close, but I gave up because my ears were hurting. I'm like, well, I changed the exhaust, so it's good, you know?
It's weird. I've been behind bikes before where they kind of like match the frequency of like your exhaust.
Oh, so bad.
And it just like rattles your brain.
Rob, 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 rob. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It is bad.
Yeah, it looks like, I'm just looking at the schedule here. On Azra's schedule, and I don't see it on here, so that sucks. Very disappointed.
I wonder if it has something to do with the sound thing.
I heard it was a scheduling conflict. That's what I heard, but
Yeah, it could be.
Do we still have some viewership going here? We got 8 people. Come on. Let's ask some questions, guys. Let's get some Q&A going. We're here for your entertainment, or maybe you'll just turn us off because we're not entertaining, but questions for Jake and tuning or whatever it is, or me with powder coating, Cerakote, or track stuff. We love talking about track stuff, track days, racing, bikes, gear. We're down to do whatever.
Yeah, anything bikes. Putting exhausts on them. Do you need exhausts? Do you need different air filters? Are Sprint air filters good? Now ask any of these questions.
Are they good? I have one on mine.
Sprint filters?
Yeah, they're like one of the better ones, right?
Yes and no. So Sprint filters 100% make power, but they also 100% do not filter.
Well, they have the so the one that I have is like the street and race one, and then the one above
like
that,
it's brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like the P08, not the F185.
Yeah, which is like a $200 filter and gives you less media filtering.
Yeah, they absolutely do not filter. So I've done back-to-back testing on them on the dyno, and 100% like Sprint filters do give power, but I've also taken apart many air boxes that are lined with dirt.
Yeah.
Just so much dirt. Like, because when the fuel, like, when the fuel injectors spray, like, people think that just like goes down in and goes in the engine and all's good, but like
back up.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, there's mist blowing around everywhere, and that fuel mist grabs dirt and then it just cakes it everywhere. And so like you'll just take your finger and just wipe off crud inside the airbox.
Yeah. Plus, when you have the oil filter breather going back into the airbox, that doesn't
so
help
if you're running
either.
your crankcase right back into it, then you get a bunch of oil vapor in there. So Sprints are good for sure, yeah. They do make power, but they are also very dirty. So you got to kind of be careful where you run them. Like, if you're in a dirty environment, like here, right? You live around farmland and stuff. Like, if you're street riding, I wouldn't run that. That's so much. Like, if you're beside, I'm sure there's loads of people, but like, when you drive down the road and they're like harvesting a bean field and it's just like not visible anymore, like, you don't want that going through a Sprint filter because it's just going in your engine.
Yeah. And like, I find little rubber balls from the tires.
Oh, from the track, yeah.
Yeah. And they shouldn't even get in there, but they're there.
Yeah.
Every once in a while. But yeah, that's
air filters are a funny topic. People get really excited about them, and yeah, like you said, that F185 filter is like $200.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not paying for that, especially when
so
I know
expensive.
If it was okay, I run it for 8 laps at a race, I might consider. But the fact that I do so many just like coaching and track day stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'm just not gonna do that. So.
Yeah.
Plus, if it rains at all, there's no like filtration for that either. You know what I mean? Like membrane or whatever. So, but yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, the P08s aren't bad. They were about $110 or something like that. $100,
yeah,
$110
like that. Yeah.
Well, they still don't filter very good, but they're whatever. It makes power.
Well,
so.
yeah. I just went based off of us kind of looking at like legitimate flow charts between that Piper Cross. There's a couple other ones I looked at, and like
MWRs are really good.
Yeah, that's another one I looked at.
You got to oil them and everything.
So I looked at a couple different ones, and like even the P08 outflowed all of those. And I'm not saying it's like by a lot, but it did.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, we'll just go with that one.
Yeah, we did back-to-back testing with an MWR and a P08 on an R1, and we didn't have a stock filter in there, so we couldn't baseline it against the stock filter. But the MWR and the Sprint filter made within dyno error, right?
Yeah.
So like on 180 horsepower, one might have been 180 and one might have been 181. So it's within the tolerance of the runs. So they were basically the same for all intents and purposes.
Does MWR have different variants of their filters as well, I think, right?
They do, but not so much like Sprint. So Sprint's kind of like you got a street one and a race one. MWR has some really funky things. Like they have this efficiency one that has a plate over the filter. I had a guy with a CBR that I tuned with that, and it actually gave some really wonky like characteristics, like on part throttle and stuff like that. It wasn't like consistent. Like it kept kind of like changing. It was very weird. Yeah.
Sprint has like 4. They have like a legit almost stock. They have a street, and they have like the street, but like 20 street, 80 race, and then they have the full fucking 100% race. So they have like, and like when I'm looking for them, you know, the numbers are very close too. It's like there's a P08 is what I have, but under that there's like a something else 08. So I'm like, and for whatever reason, I've seen this more than one time. Websites will list something with X part number, but description's different. So I had to search so much to figure out like what is the legit one I need here, or I'm trying to buy. But yeah, it's. I don't think anybody uses K&N anymore, do they? Shit.
No, not really. K&N's, so DNA is the K&N for bikes, right?
Yeah. Yep,
so DNA is basically the same as K&N, but it is way more popular in the bike scene. Like, if you have a car, you put a K&N in it. If you have a bike, you know DNA more than K&N, except the guys that come from the car world, then they know the K&N. And K&N obviously does make filters for bikes and stuff. They're just not popular at all.
Yeah.
You see them few and far between.
Yeah. That's
But the K&N is a good filter, right? I mean, it's a washable filter that's an oiled filter. So the K&N filters do legitimately filter very, very well. Incredibly well, yeah. So like if you want to keep your airbox clean, the DNAs, the K&Ns, stuff like that, you know, it is good for it.
Yeah, if you wash it and oil it correctly and all that jazz. I do have a question for you, because I've always wondered this myself, and see if you've ever had any experience with them. The reusable, like whatever micron oil filters.
Nope. You can't get a fine enough filtration from it. They don't have a micron, like they don't have a filtration micron that goes low enough. It's funny. There's actually,
I mean, they claim it to be like an OEM filter.
I'll send you a video link that's pretty cool. They introduce iron powder into oil to do a test. It's a test of both wear on the engine and filtration through the filter itself. And they use, I don't remember, it might be a Wix filter or something like that. But they use that, and then they use the lowest micron stainless that they can get. And it's on a Dyno Mule small block that they had hundreds of hours on, because they just do different tests on it, but they never damaged it. And so they put the iron powder in there. It's the same iron powder that like a machine shop uses to like Magnaflux to check for cracks and stuff.
Yeah.
I forget how much it was, but it was a controlled amount. And they put the iron powder in the oil, and then they run it with the standard oil filter, and they run it for an hour. And it was like every 10 minutes they did a full load pull. And so they get like 6 pulls, and then they stop at the end of it. They drain the oil. They take a sample of it. They send that out to get analyzed. And then obviously the power pools, you know, they could see if like it was breaking down or anything like that. And then they had the actual analysis on the video, because, you know, obviously, right, when you're making a video, you can take as much time as you need. But like the standard oil filter was great. I mean, it got, I don't know, it was like I said, I'll have to send you the video, but it was something like 90% of it or something like that, you know, like it did a really, really good job of cleaning it up. There was only a little bit of particles left in the actual oil. And then when they used the stainless one on the last, like by the last pull, the engine had dropped 10 horsepower off of it already from just an hour of running. And the stainless filter, it was like the exact opposite. Like if the other one did like 90%, it did like 10%. Like it just didn't filter it at all. And it was a paper filter was the one they used. But they attributed it to, because they said that the iron particles were smaller than the microns on both filters, but since the paper filter, you have to go like here and then through here, and then it has to go through the pores of all the paper.
Right.
It was easier for it to trap it than just going through the mesh and being done.
Interesting.
So if you didn't have iron powder in your oil and you had, debris, sure, the oil filter would pick it up, but from just like particulates and stuff, little stuff like that, it doesn't seem like they do a good enough job.
Interesting.
So I personally would not run one, no.
What about there's some people that will take, let's say, I'll just name a bike. I mean, I don't know if this is most likely there's a crossover between it, but like bike specific SV650 filter, and but then they find a Wix that's not bike specific. It's for whatever car, right? But the thread, the size, everything's the same. Is that right to use or not? Or is the relief in it or whatever, is there a difference in that?
So depending on the filter, right? So I think Wix all do them. I think Fram started doing it. A lot of them started doing it, but they're not all. They have anti-drain back valves, right?
Yeah.
And so once the filter gets primed, it never loses the oil out of it. Yeah. It kind of depends on the filter location, right? Like if the filter is mounted up underneath, it doesn't matter if it has an anti-drain back or not. Like the oil sits in it. If it's on the side, the oil can run out, but not all of it can run out. It's never a bad idea to have an anti-drain back valve. And a bigger filter is never a bad idea. Like you want to put a big filter on there. You want it to catch everything.
But is there a difference in flow or anything like that between a car specific or a bike specific filter?
So I can't give you the gospel because I don't know if like there could be orifices changed and stuff, but traditionally speaking, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to, it's going to have the opening where it threads on, and it's going to go in there, and then it's going to kind of go through that, it looks like kind of a little tube with holes drilled in it and stuff like that, and that's going to flow out into the
media.
Into the media, yeah. So I would say as long as you've done your homework and it seals where it's supposed to seal, and the flow path is correct, right? Because the flow path isn't the same across the board, and this is more cartridge filters than like screw-on oil filters. But cartridge filters, you can definitely like install them wrong or put the wrong one in, and it either will lose oil pressure because, like, for example, if there's a barb coming out and you put a cartridge filter in, and it's got a little rubber piece on and kind of goes over there and seals it, and then the cap goes on, the oil flows out through there, goes through the media, and then goes into the outside perimeter of it and then flows to the engine. Well, there's some of them that are backwards, like it comes around the outside, flows in the media, and goes through. Or you could take that filter and, like, if you turn that filter around for some reason, like, I mean, you shouldn't, but like accidents happen, and you put it in there like that, then you just block off all oil flow and stuff like that. Right. So cartridge filters you can usually mess up a little easier. The Hondas use a lot of cartridge filters like that, and a funny story, well, it's not really funny, but at the dealership, we had a kid that did that. We had a four-wheeler, it was like a TRX 420 or something like that, just a utility four-wheeler. And he put the wrong filter in, and so it blocked the flow path. And so the four-wheeler would turn on, it would run and everything like that. And then after like 5-7 minutes of running, it would start running really, really rough, and then it would stall. And a lot of these four-wheelers and dirt bike engines and stuff like that, they're all roller bearings.
Yeah.
And so you could run them with no oil, and they'd still run because the roller bearings kind of just need a spit of oil, and they'll keep going.
Right.
And so what was happening is he put the filter in wrong. It was stopping all oil flow. And so like the engine would spin fine and everything like that, except there was no lubrication to the actual piston and cylinder. And so it was like
slowing it down.
When it was running rough, it was seizing. Jesus. And then it would seize up completely, and then when it was off, it would cool down, and then it would be able to move again, so you could start it back up, but then it would seize up again. He seized this thing up probably like 4 or 5 times trying to figure out what was going on, and so needless to say, a top end got put in that four-wheeler.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah. But no, like if you can fit a bigger filter in there, and you're not compromising anything like changing flow path or anything like that, for sure, yeah, a bigger filter's always going to be better, it's kind of like putting a bigger air filter on, you get more space. It's easier to flow through, especially if you're using like one of the paper media ones, right? Because there's a lot of resistance to flow in those paper medias.
And extra, you have extra oil capacity too. Just that little bit extra could be a little bit more cooling, right?
Yeah. So extra oil capacity goes a long way in the small engines. A lot of the little dirt bikes we do, the Grom, stuff like that, they have so little oil in it, and you're using the oil to cool them. And actually, this is kind of a side topic, which we don't really have to go into, but there is a difference between an air-cooled engine and an oil-cooled engine.
Right.
Even if, like, it's air and oil, and this is air and oil, there is a difference between air-cooled and oil-cooled specifically.
Yeah. I mean, oil-cooled would have an oil cooler, right? I mean, you're cooling the oil.
Typically, but it's... But even further than that, the oil path is designed differently.
To go up through the cylinder head, correct?
The oil path goes through. So, yeah, it's in the cylinder head, but like usually they'll channel it around like the exhaust and stuff like that and through the cylinder. But they channel the oil specifically so that it pulls heat out of it as opposed to... So like the Groms. The Groms are an air-cooled engine, right?
Yeah.
And so... the oil doesn't necessarily take a path that it's trying to cool it down. The bulk of the cooling,
right?
Yep. So the bulk of the cooling is just all those fins and stuff on it.
Yeah.
So obviously you put an oil cooler on it and stuff like that, and it will cool it down more. But it's not designed as an oil-cooled engine. Where if you get like, some of the big-inch Harleys, they are oil-cooled, right? And so the oil is directed specifically at certain places in the engine to cool them down. It's not necessarily just the air cooling it. So there's kind of three different coolings, air-cooled, oil-cooled, and liquid-cooled. But most people think air and oil are the same thing.
Right.
And it is a little different. But when you add the oil coolers and stuff, and like you said, the oil capacity, yeah, that helps a lot. Because if you have half a quart circulating through the engine and it's just getting roasted, if you add another half a quart to that, that's already good. Yeah. And then you put a cooler on it, and stuff like that. Now, before anybody goes and just puts double the amount of oil in your engine, it doesn't work that way. But if you can safely get more oil in the engine, it's better. That's why you'll see a lot of performance stuff takes a lot of oil.
Yeah,
a lot. Oh my god, especially diesels, right? Like 15 quarts, 17 quarts in diesels.
Yeah, it's I
nuts.
Just bought oil for the wife's 4-cylinder diesel, and it was it 8 quarts?
Yeah,
9 quarts?
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my truck takes a lot, man.
Yeah,
It's
I worked
crazy,
I worked at Walmart when I was going to college in like the oil change place, and I remember like changing diesel oil, and it's super nasty to begin with, but there's just so much of it. It's crazy how much oil those things hold. Like,
well, they should. That stuff. It's crazy how sooted it gets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
literally, like the second you put oil in there, it's just
shit. Yeah,
it's just completely dirty again.
It's wild how bad it actually is. Like, it's just so black.
Yeah, and it's and it's nasty. Yeah. It's gritty and
yep.
Yeah, it's just gross.
Pretty wild, but
yeah. So like so the Corvette Grand Sports and the Z06, I can't remember the exact quantity, but it's a lot more than just like a standard 6.2 because they run a dry sump system in them. So if you get a GS or a Z06, they got a dry sump oiling system, and so yeah, you've got 8 quarts or something like that, as opposed to like 5, 6, 9 quarts maybe. I don't remember what it is, but they run a lot more oil. And then you can get into the wet clutch versus no wet clutch oil, right? Because if you don't have to run wet clutch oil, you can make more power.
Yeah, you're not using that up. You're not dirtying it up, for one. You're not soaking the heat up with it. And
I think Ducati claimed, it was crazy, I think Ducati claimed 4 horsepower on their V4R.
That's wild,
with their special shell oil that they could run since it was a dry clutch. 4 horsepower from an oil is insane. That's wild. So we did a lot of oil testing for a third-party company. And we saw the biggest swings from a 1030 to a 1550, 1050. It was 15. I don't know. The first number doesn't quite matter, but the 50 weight oil versus the 30 weight. That was the biggest swing, but still, just going from 10W40, the Castrol that we tested, I don't know, it's in like a gold bottle. I forget what, Power One or something like that.
Is it the GTX something or other?
No, it's not GTX stuff, and this was all motorcycle stuff too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Power One. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Power One.
Yeah.
So it made the most, and it actually made more than some of the 1030s. But it was wild to see the difference. I think we had I think a 4 or 5 horsepower swing was the greatest swing from a 30 or something like that to the 50, but we still had like a 2 horsepower swing in just oil to oil, same weight, same everything.
That's
but
crazy.
Oil to oil, there was like a 2 horsepower, and these were very, very controlled because again, it was third party testing. Like I had to be very controlled, so I had the ECU data pulled so that I could have coolant temp, and then I physically had a temp probe for the oil. And so every run was made with the same oil temp and the same coolant temp. And the oils were, so basically what we did was, like if you just start, right, you did all your dyno runs with the base oil, whatever, you would drain the oil, you'd put the new oil in that you wanted to run, you would run the bike for 5 minutes, you would drain it out, take the filter off, put not the same oil, but the same kind of oil, right? Like, obviously, that's used oil. You throw it away. But then you put the same kind of oil back into it and then put it on the dyno. We did 30 minutes of steady state running. After the 30 minutes of steady state running, with the second oil change in it, then we would take our tests. Yeah. We would do our readings. Then we'd pull it off, drain it, new oil, run for 5 minutes, drain it, the new oil again, 30 minutes of steady state running, and then get your tests. But it was really, really cool because we got to see, like, is there a difference between oil? I don't know. Well, yes, there is. Is there a difference between oil weights? Yeah, there is. The only thing, so since it was third-party testing, they took all the samples, and because we took samples of the oil as well.
So they could check, break down and all that.
Yeah, so they took all that. So we got no data on any of that. So I don't have any data as far as like protection goes. Like I couldn't tell you if, AMSoil protects better than Castrol.
Right.
Because I didn't have that analysis. But I can tell you what the power difference was between the two. And it was pretty interesting to see. I was surprised. And we threw a couple of the oils we wanted to look at in at the end, and so that was kind of cool too. We tested the Motul 300V.
Yeah,
and it's not a winner. So
well, maybe not power wise.
Exactly.
But with the ester based stuff, it's a little bit better protection. But
could be protection. Yeah. Yeah, but I can't say on that. But I can say that same with AMSoil. AMSoil wasn't a big power maker, but it could be good on protection.
Right.
I would put AMSoil over 300V in protection personally, but that's just me. Like I don't have scientific data to back that up, but I've seen a lot of bad stuff with 300V in it. Not that it's a bad oil or something like that, but they do also say it's not a street oil, right? It's a racing oil. You run it, race it, and then change it. I think is it 7100? Is that their like street oil? Like the red stuff? Smells like detergent.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It was cool to see all that. Tires, same thing. Different tires will do different power on the dyno.
Oh yeah.
If you put an insanely sticky tire on there, it'll pull horsepower from it, and if you put a hard tire on there, you'll gain horsepower. Unless you have a high horsepower bike. So you start to get out of that stuff a little bit when you get into really, really big numbers. Because like
spin and stuff.
Yeah, like if you have a 200 wheel horsepower bike and you put an all season tire on there or something, and you pump it up to 42 PSI because you want to get the biggest number, you'll just spin the tire.
Yeah.
And even if it's not, spinning crazy, like burning out, it's still slipping on the roller. And then you'll take that off and you'll put a Q4 or Q5 now or something like that on it, and you'll drop 10 horsepower. It's wild.
That's pretty wild.
Strapping the bike down, the tighter you strap it down, you can lose power. You start to like the strapping thing does change it, but you start to lose how much that actually changes when you're getting really big power levels. Because like if you're doing 200 wheel horsepower, it doesn't really matter if you strap it down really tight or not so tight. There's a lot of YouTube guys that don't actually strap them, and it's crazy. Like, I don't know. That'd be sketchy to me. Like, personally, running a dyno, I wouldn't want to run a big bike like that. I'll run little stuff, like sub 20 horsepower stuff with no strap. Obviously, you have to strap it in the front wheel chock, so it can't go anywhere. But as far as like strapping the sides and pulling it down,
I won't. Still, if you make big power, but like, I think one of the big things is definitely like the tread on your drum. Because I remember Brian Turner's dyno, like he just got his laser cut like not too long ago, and it's awesome now. But like when it started getting to the end of its life, it was like, even with big cars, no matter what, you still had to put a couple people in the trunk. Yeah. But like when we dynoed my twin turbo Mustang I had that made like 950, it was like, okay, everybody in the trunk.
Yeah. Did you put bleach on the tires?
No, I had drag radials on it, but because like big car, especially turbo car, when it hits, it's just you're spinning.
Yeah, that's why you can't do. That's why, I mean, you can, but it's not very fun. But like, you wouldn't want to take like an RSV4 and do like a first or second gear pull on the dyno. Well, like, it's just way too violent. Like, it just hits so incredibly hard.
And I mean, the power difference. I mean, it's supposed to be 1-to-1, right? I mean, that's what it's supposed to be.
In cars, yeah. Bikes, you can't touch that. It's impossible. Like, they don't have I shouldn't say that for like Harleys and stuff like that. But for like super sport bikes and stuff like that, you can't touch it. They have an additional gear reduction. Okay. So like in your car, you have your engine to your trans,
and then rear end,
and it goes through the gear or whatever. Like, engine goes through first gear, goes through rear end, and your tires, right? But the bikes, you have engine, then the primary gear set of the crank to the clutch, then in the transmission, then in the chain and sprockets, because you're doing 15,000 RPMs, right? Like, imagine how fast your truck would go if it had 15,000 RPMs, right? Like, you could go 400 miles an hour. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, it would explode. But if it was capable of those kind of RPMs, it's geared to go 400 mile an hour. Then, right? It's crazy. But yeah, that's a big thing in the car world. They always try to get close to 1-to-1 dynoing and stuff like that.
I'm curious. Beginning of next year, I want to bring the 660 back over and put it on the dyno. Just see after a year, and put on a shit tire, a different tire besides a race slick. Actually, with the Bridgestone, probably be okay because it's a harder tire.
Actually, so you would be surprised. Slicks are great. Slicks will make a standard power. Like, slicks will make pretty much what the bike will make. They have enough grip where they don't spin and stuff, but you actually don't put enough heat in them to make them incredibly sticky, right? Yep. So like a Q4 will drop 10 horsepower from a slick.
Oh, yeah.
Well, on a 1,000cc bike. So on a 600, you'll drop about half that. But on a 1,000cc bike, you'll drop 8 to 10 horsepower on a, quote-unquote track day tire, right? Like the Pirelli TD or the Q5.
Something that's super heated up quick.
Yeah, versus like a slick. The slick, you just won't put enough temperature into it to get it sticky enough to really rob you of a bunch of power. Yeah,
I'm curious. I just like to see if it took any abuse over the season or whatever, to see how it feels and see what it if it same power. So we'll try to similar conditions and whatnot. And then one day I'm bringing Chris's bike back. Well, hopefully after he gets it done, I'm going to be like, I'm taking your bike home with me so I can dyno it, because I want to be like, okay, let's apples to apples. Yeah. Just dyno to dyno, or like same dyno, just to show them, be like, come on.
Oh, you made 94. Now you actually make 94.
Yeah, I told them, like, make sure HSBK, when they said, oh, this is, I'm like, tell them to show you pictures of the inside of your engine and your bearings and stuff, because me personally, I'm curious to how his looks versus what mine look like.
No, for sure.
And I'm like, also, make sure that he's like, oh, yeah, they dynoed it, said it made 92. I said, that's a little high, but make sure that they send you a dynograph, and that way the dynograph afterwards, and then you could see what you gained.
For sure.
They told him, oh, it'll only pick up 2 horsepower with a ported head.
I mean, I can't argue that, so to say, because I didn't do back to back. The cylinder head was really good. The intake port was very, very good. The intake port It could use a hint of epoxy, but it really, we talked about that. I showed you where it could use a hint of epoxy, but it really wasn't bad. It was a very, very good intake port. The exhaust port definitely needed work. And from the exhaust port, I would think you could pick up a little more, but the cylinder heads are so good that, like, if it did pick up 2 horsepower, I wouldn't call it a bust as long as it didn't lose power, right? Because I see it all too often, especially in superbikes, where it'll get ported from some big name drag racing company or guy or something like that, and the port's garbage. Like, it'll work at 10,000 plus RPMs, but below that, it's lazy. And so you'll lose power all the way up the curve until 10, 12,000 RPMs, and then it'll, peak a little higher. And so, you might make 5, 8 more horsepower peak. So, like, for example, I did one of them. It was a GSX-R 1000, one of the new ones, 17 plus, right?
Yeah.
I dynoed it, full bolt on, all that good stuff, made, 84 or something like that, right? Good power curve, everything was nice. Gets a set of, I think they were Webbs, they might have been Yosh cams, it doesn't matter, whatever, they're cams, and the head was ported. And they just went to town on it, and this thing lost horsepower all the way until like 11,000 RPMs, and then it gained, like, I think it made 94 or 95 afterwards. So it kind of gained in that 8 to 10 horsepower peak number. But if you looked at area under the curve, so we look at area under the curve on the dyno a lot because it's a numerical value. It's kind of like arbitrary. It doesn't really mean anything. But the bigger number shows that you made more power through that entire curve, right? And so, like, if you change something, you can look at area under the curve because it might have lost a little down low but gained a little up top. And so, like, is it a win or a loss? I don't know. Okay, let's look at area under the curve. Like, no, it was a loss. So the power curve that he had was considerably more than afterwards when he made more horsepower up top, but the entire curve, he lost a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like the same thing with stacks when you develop those. You run in the same thing. But, I mean, people, like, generally, I think they just feel like, oh, well, if I do this, it's going to make more power. And it might show, a peak power, but, like, everything's got to work in concession with each other to say, like, with the cams that I bought for my bike, like, the bike makes more power from fucking idle to peak.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and it makes more torque from idle to peak. And, like, without the cams, I don't think it would show that. Like, the exhaust cam was changed dramatically.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what it did on stock cams because we didn't do it. We kind of did like a bunch of stuff, right? It picked up everywhere and was great. So it'd be interesting to see just a camshaft change or just the cylinder head change. I mean, I probably wouldn't doubt them because they probably have done that. They probably have changed just the cylinder head.
Well, that's what most people are doing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, cams aren't really readily available. If they are, like, if MotoAmerica's running them, I don't know who's making them.
But even if everybody's doing them now, like the first season, nobody had cams. So all they could do is just pull the head off, port it, and, maybe add some compression to it and send it. So they probably have tested that. But, yeah, if you pick up 2 horsepower and you lose nothing and it's just solid gains, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if you pick up 2 horsepower and you lose everything under 8K, then you wasted your money. Like,
yeah, and I guess it a lot of it depends on application too. You know what I mean? Like, for what I'm doing, like, we are riding a lot of high RPMs, but there are times when you need certain drive out of corners and stuff. And
so that's the big that right there. What you said is the biggest thing that people don't realize because it's like it's racing. You're only going to be in high RPMs. Like, yes, it is racing. You are going to be in high RPMs. But we turn. It's not drag racing.
Right. Mid corner, coming out of a corner, exiting corner, you're not wide open.
Yeah. And you're not at 12,000 RPMs.
Yeah, it's mid range, and
yeah. You have to have a bike that can perform, from mid range to top end. Like, yeah, if you don't make any power at 4K, it's not that big of a deal. You're never going to be at 4K.
Well, it depends on what bike you have.
Well, okay, yeah. So if you have a normal super sport and, it 4 to 6K, you don't make any power, cool. Like, as long as 8 to 14, in there, you're making power. But, like, you don't want something that crosses over at 11 or 12 and you peak at 14 and you're done. Like,
right.
most of the guys, I would say, won't even ride there. You know?
I mean,
most guys are short shifting anyways, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even, really remember. I mean, I'm probably, really mid-range most corner exit. I mean, because you don't want to be low. You just don't want to not have that power to accelerate out of the corner. So, I mean, you need to be in that mid-range. My bike's, like 11.5, so I'm like 5,000 and above, 6,000 and above.
Yeah.
And that's on a bike that only revs 11.5.
Yeah.
Because, if you're below that, it's just not making the power to really get that pull out. And if you're below that, you need to be in a different gear.
Yeah, for sure. And then part throttle's even worse. If you have a power curve that drops power, like under 10K or something like that, right? Like if you have a power curve that drops power kind of in the low, mid, and it doesn't do anything until top.
Full wide open.
Full wide open will be a lot better than part. Part throttle, it'll be absolute garbage, just ruined.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, I'm extremely happy with my bike, like the way it performs, the way it pulls out of corners. It's got more top end. It's got more, like, just through the whole rev range, it made more power, more torque, and it's just, man, it pulls a lot better, and makes it easier for me to go faster. You did an extremely awesome job on it.
It's so close to a super sport. Like, I want to do a refresh just so we can get like super sport power, but like
maybe next year.
But I don't want to do it because I don't want to tear your engine apart. But like,
well, you're going to at some point because I want to change up all the bearings and stuff.
But it's so close, man. You are like on MR12, you're a stock super sport, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it's noticeable different.
Actually, it's more. So I've dynoed multiple stock 600s that are kind of 98 to 102. And so bone stock 600 on pump gas, you're golden.
And it makes way more torque.
Yeah. And then MR12, you're more, So MR12, you're getting closer to bolt-on 600, which is just, it's wild for a parallel twin. Like, obviously, Aprilia hit it out of the park, and they did really, really good with that, and they stressed that engine a lot. Like, she's pushed really, really far, which is why they had a lot of problems with them, a lot of breakage. But still, you have a parallel twin that's putting out super sport power. That's just really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's it's the best twin on the market engine wise. I mean, performance wise.
I mean, if you put an SV650 there, it wouldn't make it off the dyno.
Oh no, not even close.
It would explode on the dyno.
I mean, even less than that. When they make like mid 80s, they're really unreliable.
Yeah.
But think about that Ducati, that single cylinder.
Yeah.
Dude, that thing is at the ragged edge the way it sits. That's crazy. I mean, that's just, like, even my buddy who knows shit about motorcycles, he's into cars now. He wasn't, but he is now in German stuff. And he goes, because he knows I'm into bikes. This is like my best friend from like kindergarten. He's like, do you see that single cylinder that's making 86? I'm like, that's a Ducati. Yeah. It's crazy, dude. It's like insane. I mean, that's just the limits. That's like that Toyota GR 3-cylinder.
Dude, I love the GRs.
Yeah, and they have those things up to like 500 wheel.
Which is
they're
crazy.
Crazy. It's just crazy. But yeah.
But if you think about that single, what was it? It was almost 700 cc's, right?
Yeah.
It was like 690 or something like that.
Something like that. Yep.
That's not really far away from a 1299, right?
No.
So and a 1299 makes 200 horsepower. So it's kind of like you just cut a 1299 in half. Well, stuck it in a dirt bike.
What do you think they did? The 660 the same way, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
for
it's
sure.
half RSV4. Speaking of RSV4, what do you think? You think it's going to get homologated? I'll bet you.
So I think it will get homologated, and I don't think it'll be good.
I don't know if it will or not. I know that like when I had my bike at Robum, they had an RSV4 there, and they were testing it with Stefano Mesa.
Okay.
And it was stock, besides just race prepped, right? Mm-hmm. And it blew a head gasket.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, he was not happy with it. But I mean, if it gets FIM homologated, I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that someone will bring one on Superbike Grid.
Yeah, I would love to see it. The reason I don't think it'll be that good, and I can't quite say, but I feel like it is handicapped because it already doesn't make the horsepower that like a V4R does.
Right.
It's very close, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much there. But technically, it doesn't make the same horsepower as a V4R. I don't know what kind of power it'll make versus a V4R when they're built for racing, right? But I would say it's still going to be close to it.
But they would neuter it because of the CC advantage.
So they already said it has to have more weight, right? So no matter what, it has to have more weight, which isn't the biggest deal. Like, I mean,
you keep talking. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick.
Yeah, like 12 pounds is because it was 6 or 7 kilograms, I think that it said. So 12-ish, 13 pounds. You know, it's not crazy, but it's still a decent amount. You know, when you're racing the same bike beside you that's lighter and makes the same power, if not a little bit more. And then on top of that, they're going to get into the ECUs. So they didn't say whether like they were going to pull it back real bad like the Ducati and Supersport, but they'll probably still, I don't know, do a little bit with it, given that it's size. So I don't know. It'd be fun to see. It'd be fun to just see another super bike out there on the grid, but
all right.
So yeah, like they're gonna have the additional weight, which again isn't make or break, but then if they get into the ECU and they start pulling it back because it's bigger, it's already close to, if not down a little bit, you know, on current horsepower of thousands. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think it won't be competitive. Like if you put two top tier riders the same level on it side by side, the Ducati would drive away from it all day.
I don't disagree with that, and I don't think that it's going to win.
But I don't think I think there's a spot for it though, because there's so many bikes out there that aren't fighting for first place that you could easily put, you know, a good rider on it and still, you know, do top 7, top 5 finishes on it.
I also think in Aprilia's mind, like in America, the 660, like being in the race series, really drove sales a lot.
I would believe that for sure.
You know, and it's a good bike, not even if you don't know that it's in a race series, but that did drive a lot of people to get that bike on track. And, you know, I think maybe they want to throw a little bit more money into getting it on the grid and with support and stuff and helping out, and maybe that'll drive some sales and get people, you know, coming to the brand a little bit more. So that'd be awesome. And I'm just looking forward to see it back on SBK. And you know, like I said, I don't expect that bike to be a winning bike whatsoever. I just want another manufacturer on the grid.
Yeah, it'll be like it'll be cool to see him out there. I don't know. WSBK will be better. If they put it in WSBK, that'll give us a much better indication of it, because nothing against any of the American teams, but I don't think they can build it.
Well, I just don't think the development's going to be. I mean, everything that comes, you know, in MotoAmerica, they're getting the help from overseas.
Yeah,
Either be manufacturing
exactly.
or the data setups and things like that, and like BMW and everybody does. But
yeah, so that's why I think if it goes to a WSBK grid, it'll be a much better benchmark to see what it can actually do. And it'll probably go through the same woes as like the Honda. Like it'll come out big horsepower, lots of top speed, but so many refinements that need to be made, like chassis wise and all that stuff. And even the Honda, they've went through so many revisions. So like the new bike is a lot different than the RR that we've had for the past 2 years, or the triple R that we've had for the past 2 years. Something cool they did on the new one is they did independent control on the throttle body. So 2 cylinders are controlled independently.
Oh, interesting.
Apparently, from what I was reading, that was a big deal of why they were having corner exit issues, because it was hard to dial in the engine because you were turning on 4 cylinders. And so they want to turn on 2 cylinders and then bring on 4 cylinders, because that's what everybody else is doing. Everybody else has that control, apparently, from what I read, which makes sense for sure. And I remember reading an article from a journalist that rode, I think he rode Tom Sykes' bike. And he said that it was insane because of how powerful it was and everything. It was the best riding bike that like he's ever been on, just because of how everything was refined, like corner exit, corner entry, so on and so forth. Like everything was perfect. So it was extremely powerful. but it was easier to ride than a street bike, he said.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was really crazy because, like, I would think a street bike would be easier because it's numb and, you know, there's a lot less power to it and stuff. But he said everything was so refined that it just worked.
Huh. I was listening to some commentary on MotoGP bikes, and they were saying Honda's testing is actually going really well.
I read that too,
and they were saying that one of the reasons why is they've lengthened the bike.
Okay.
So the reason why, remember when Paul was on it, Paul Spargo?
Any particular case or just
long
when he was
time ago, right? And if it was Qatar or something, and he was like, really good bike. Marquez came back. Marquez doesn't like a long bike because it doesn't turn as quickly, but the bike would hook up being longer.
Okay.
So they shortened the bike after Marquez says no. So they shortened it, and then that's when the bike became unrideable. Now the bike is lengthened back again.
Yeah.
They've tweaked engine stuff a little bit, but the engine was always making really good power.
Oh, yeah.
But when they shortened it, now the bike won't hook up because it'll turn in really quickly, but it's not stable. And then also exiting, it's just spinning the tires so they're not hooking up, so it's not getting the drive. So, shortening it up, it wasn't getting the same mile per hour as they used to when the bike was more lengthened. And you could tell because, like, it's the first, 400 feet or something exiting at corners where end up being the top speed is – that's where you get your top speed from. Because if you're spinning up the whole time, it's not really doing a whole lot. But so they lengthened the bike, and that's what's made the difference. That's what the change is.
Yeah.
Is that lengthening the bike and make it more stable. The bike, he was like, what's his name? Is it Mir? Yeah, right?
Current Mir, yeah.
Yeah, Mir. He's like, I feel like I'm not going to wreck anymore.
Yeah, so I did see that he was talking about how that's what I was telling you about. He said that he felt like that was the first big change that he actually really got on the Honda. So it does look like they're making progress. I still don't think it's going to be a good bike come next season, but I think at least they're making progress.
I think they're ahead of Yamaha for sure because Yamaha, excuse me, so this new, whoever they got that's building the engine, they've had one designation of it, and it was just like shit.
Did you see Lynn Jarvis basically admitted that it's his fault? Well, not necessarily that it's his fault, it's Yamaha's fault. He's like, we really just kind of quit engine development for the past couple years, and that really came back to bite us. They're
sticking to inline. They want to keep it that inline, and they can't, like, it's making the maximum power that it can, and with the way that the power comes on and stuff, like they can't make more power because it's just going to make more tire spin the way that comes on. And also, if they go to a V4, then their chassis, like what they're known for, it being a very flowing bike, it goes away. Yeah. But Aprilia does it. Like, that bike is a corner bike.
Yeah.
It's not a stop and turn like the KTM or the Ducati, but
it would be interesting to take like the Ducati or the Aprilia because they both turn good.
Yeah.
And see how good they turn. Like, their current bikes right now, the best turning V4 bikes, and see how they turn against the old Suzuki. Because that was a smooth handling bike.
Like, but that's an inline as well, though.
Yeah, for sure. But I just mean, like, that was that bike. I would put that bike in the corners over the Yamaha, and so it'd be interesting to see how much better it is than like the Ducati. Because Mark was saying that racing the new Ducatis, he's like, it's like racing Davi, except it can corner.
Yeah.
So it's
that's essentially what. And it's all about aero, right? And so that's talking about aero. They were saying that with the Yamaha, because it can't make any power, that it can't take the advantage of the aero.
Oh, yeah, I could see that for sure.
Because it slows it down.
Yeah.
You have to make so much. You have to have so much speed and so much power in order for the aero to work. So with adding the aero, it actually takes away some of the speed because the motor's not making the power it needs to.
Well, yeah, you have to overcome the aero. I mean, the aero, like, downforce is literally drag.
Right.
Like, it literally slows you down. I mean, that's what it is.
Another thing they commented on with the Honda, they said they could really see is when they went to Magneti Marelli as the standard for ECU. So the Japanese didn't, they don't really understand the Magneti Marelli system as well as Ducati or Aprilia or whatever that has been using it forever in all their bikes. So, what they need to do, the guy was mentioning, which I agree with that, is they need to, get off their high horse and get an Italian. That's why they were trying, yes and no to get Gigi.
Yeah.
Because he knows the shit really well. If they can get a hold of somebody who knows the system really well, I think they can take advantage of a little bit more of the electronics correctly, and work it out a little bit more. But that was there's some interesting topics on that, which I was like, man, I didn't even really think about that.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's hard to see. I mean, I can understand that maybe they'd have a leg up initially, but like they have the smartest people working with them, right? Like I feel like they would be able to figure out like the electronics.
No
and stuff.
doubt. But if you're talking, so let's say you have your top tier of the people that work with this stuff, and you have people that know the system really, really well. And then you have people that are very, very smart and know how to use systems, but they're not as familiar with it. Well, which one's going to have the advantage, obviously?
For sure. I just feel like you would be able to, like, over time, you'd be able to, bridge that gap.
You would think, but, I mean, there might be something a little extra there that, that just makes it a little bit easier for them. But
yeah. Or they might just keep coming out with revisions.
That's true as well.
Like, every year there might be a different revision, and so it's a new learning curve.
Another thing that I didn't know that they touched on that was interesting is like with the rear ride height. So how do you think that works as far as like not for just a start? Let's say when they're exiting a corner, how do you think they initiate that or whatever?
I mean, I would think that it's getting compressed from the bike, from the drive. And then they're doing something to lock it, if I had to make a guess.
So I thought, from what I thought, is when they exit a corner and they get the bike straight up and it's on the gas, it's squatted, and they lock it. like basically what you're saying. That's not the case. So what it is when you're entering the corner, you initiate the sequence. And when it exits, the sequence already initiated, and when it squats and reaches that certain squat, it locks in.
Okay.
Which is so much easier than what I thought it would be. Like, I have to time it just right. You know what I mean?
I didn't think there was a time, but I thought it was something like you would have to, like when they do with the start, right? Like they turn a lever or something like that.
Yeah.
I would think they would have to like they turn a lever and this pin is kind of like preloaded, right? And then when it goes down far enough, it just boop.
Yeah, and I would assume that's probably essentially kind of what it is, because it has to be mechanical, or maybe it's mechanical with a hydraulic load that pushes the mechanical, whatever. It just can't be automated, right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was like they're controlling it on exit. So, I'm switching it on, and if I forget to do that or whatever, but it makes a lot more sense, and it seems a lot easier to go, all right, I'm entering the corner, I'm going to click it in, and then as soon as I exit and it squats and it hits that position, it's locking. And then as soon as I get on the front brake, it's unlocking.
It's hard to say which is easier, though, because think about all the stuff they're doing going into a corner.
Well, yeah, but
they're always doing something, right?
Yeah,
so it's difficult to say, but like, they probably tested it, and they were probably like, it's easier if we initiate this going into the corner than mid corner.
I mean, they could probably initiate it honestly, like, well, I can't say that, because who knows? I don't know when it unlocks.
Yeah, like maybe if they shift and it like kind of bounces or something, and then like, it locked up, or
it just stays locked, like Zarco and some other guys.
Vinales,
Vinales.
Yep. They were testing a new way to lock it or something like that, and his got stuck, and so he's just riding around, stuck down on the bottom. He had to pull in.
I still would like you to design me a launch, like just a front launch system for mine.
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking over to like look at a bike, and there's none there.
Yeah,
but,
it's in the basement. So
I think we can.
I think it would be cool to try it and see. And then I can test and see if it works. And then if it does, then maybe we could make something of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. Because, it's that, like, essentially, you kind of do similar to a dirt bike mechanical style, but, like, make it, it'd have to be, we just have to figure out how to make it work.
So for the sport bike, like, my idea for it is internal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... So I have an idea on how to do it, but it's all internal. It's not an external like the dirt bike, but it's very similar in functionality. Yeah.
Yeah. Got you. So it'd be something like, okay, yeah. I have an idea what you would do. So, but yeah, we can maybe explore that and see, because that would be a very cool thing to have. And then who knows, man, that could go out to MotoAmerica.
I mean, there is nobody that uses anything like that.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I think like I told you, there's that guy that like made one on the KTM Facebook group for the 390 or whatever. And yeah, I think, I think he's going to start selling whatever, but that's very bike specific or whatever. But if we could figure something out and it could become a piece that's like reliably used, and it could, it could be all over the MotoAmerica grid.
What springs do you have in the front of your bike?
Oh man, I can't even remember. I think they're
like 9.5s,
9.5s or ones.
Yeah. So that's fine, because I would think the KTM would be a little undersprung, and so you might be able to get away with something softer on that. But if you're running at least like 9.5s, 1.0s, something like that, like that's a heavy enough spring where if it works on your bike, it'll work on thousands, and not like thousands of bikes, but like 1,000cc bikes, 600cc bikes, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
you have GP cartridges, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to pull. I mean, it's in the basement now, so I'm not doing anything over the winter, obviously. But
what do the GP cartridges have in the center of the preload nut? So in the very center, is there a tiny hex that's a compression or a rebound?
Yeah. So yeah, it's similar to like
Öhlins. You have rebound in one, compression in the other.
Yep, and it's like a 14 mil nut. That is your preload adjustment, and then in the center is it's a Allen.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anything else, man?
Nope.
Neither do I, man.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I think all of our watchers are gone except probably Matthew. But
Matt's still flying. He doesn't have a choice.
But yeah, I think we're right at the 2-hour mark anyways, what we usually do. So, yeah, we'll cut it out, and then we'll be back here next Thursday unless something happens. But, yeah, we'll next week, I think I kind of mentioned this last time or whatever, but we can go into kind of a little bit more of the how to get started in track days, or if you're in track days, just some tips and tricks to get going a little bit better, some mindset stuff. But we can start like at the low point of like, hey, I've never done one before. How do I get into it? Whatever. And we could also maybe cover some gear or stuff like that, unless we have some other topics. But yeah, we'll start something like that. That'll be something we can touch on to give us some good content and updates on the shops as usual and stuff. And hopefully. One day or another, we'll maybe get over and get some. Doesn't have to be per se live, but we can do some recording of some dynos and stuff, and some explanation of things, and then when we're doing the podcast, we can just play it during that. And we could even do we could do some voiceovers, so we don't particularly have to record what's actually going on. That you can discuss it as we're playing it on the screen for people to. So we don't have to be live and have noise and all that shit and whatever. But we can do some of that, or, whatever. We can touch on all kinds of different things, processes and stuff over your shop or my shop, and kind of overlay that and do some commentary on it. That way have a little bit more interactive things going on there. So if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing us discuss, then let us know. We'll probably do it anyways, no matter what. But, yeah. So thank you guys for joining us. And anything else there, Jake?
That is it. Thank you very much.
We will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for viewing. And, yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Yep, we'll see you.